Despite these purges, Baal worship remained in practice both in Israel and Judah for some time to come. In the north, the prophet Hosea complained, "The more I called Israel, the further they went from me. They sacrificed to the Baals, and they burned incense to images." Hosea chapter 11, verse 2. And Isaiah 57 laments, "The idols among the smooth stones of the ravens are your portion. They are your lot. Yes, to them you have poured out your drink offering and offered grain offering. In the light of the things should I relent? You have made your bed on a high lofty hill, and there you went up to offer your sacrifices." King Hezekiah of Judah, 716 to 687 BCE, and other good kings mounted a campaign to tear down the high places in which deities such as Baal were worshipped. Hezekiah's son Manasseh, however, allowed altars to Baal to be rebuilt. Did God have a wife? And other archaeologists find evidence that the worship of Baal and Asherah flourished rather consistently among the common people, especially outside of Jerusalem, alongside of Yahweh worship sanctioned by the temple priesthood. By the time of King Josiah, 640 to 609 BCE, even the temple of Jerusalem itself reportedly housed sacred prostitutes involved in the fertility occult, associated with Baal and Asherah. 2 Kings chapter 23. Josiah purged the temple of all vestiges of pagan worship. He also did away with the pagan priest appointed by the kings of Judah to burn incense on the high places of the towns of Judah and on those around Jerusalem, those who burn incense to Baal. 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 5. In the biblical view, however, Josiah's reform had come too late. God has already determined to punish Judah for her sins. Josiah was killed in battle against Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt, and the Babylonians soon besieged Jerusalem. The prophet Jeremiah reported Baal worship still common in his day. Jeremiah 2:23, 7:9, 9:14, 11:17, etc. While Ezekiel had a vision of pagan worship in the temple itself before its destruction in 586 BCE. The Bible considers that Israel's destruction by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BCE and the later destruction of Judah by Babylon are both due to the failure to follow God's command to completely eliminate Baal worship and the Canaanite religious practices. Baal is not mentioned in the post-exilic biblical writings. However, the Acrophil, Baal and the dragon, appended to the book of Daniel in some versions of the Bible, tells the story of the prophet Daniel exposing the fraudulent practices of Babylonian Baal or Marduk worship. Non-Jewish populations in Judea and Samaria in the period between 400 BCE and the Common Era, no doubt continued to worship Baal and his Greek or Roman counterparts. However, the Jewish identity was now firmly associated with monotheism of the Yahwehist variety. Now, the distinction between Yahweh and Baal, it has been suggested by modern scholars that the Lord of the Hebrews and the Baal of the Canaanites may not always have been so distinct. Psalms 82:1 states, God presides in the great assembly. He gives judgment among the gods. Many commentators believe this verse harkens back to a time when the Hebrew religion was not yet monotheistic. Some suggest that Yahweh and Baal were originally both thought of as sons of El, while others claim that the worship of Yahweh and Baal may once have been indistinguishable. That's just what they think. The later prophets and temple priests condemned worshiping Yahweh in the high places, declaring that Jerusalem's altar only was authorized. Yet earlier prophets and even Elijah himself offered sacrifices at these very high places. Similarly, the establishment of the sacred pillars was condemned as related to the worship of Baal and Asherah. Yet the patriarch Jacob erected a stone pillar in honor of El at Bethel. Genesis 28:18 and 19. Moses set up 12 pillars at which sacrifices were offered at Mount Sinai, Exodus 24. And Joshua established a sacred pillar at Shechem, Joshua 24:26. Clearly then, the worship of Baal and Yahweh resembled each other more closely in the early days of Israel's history, but came to be more distinct through later prophetic teachings and priestly legislation. Since Baal simply means Lord, there is no obvious reason why at one time it could not be applied to Yahweh as well as other gods. Indeed, it is clearly the case that the Israelites did not always consider Baal and Yahweh worship incompatible. In other words, they tried to combine the two. Several prominent Israelites bore Baal names. The judge Gideon was also called Jerubbaal, a name that seems to mean Baal strives. A descendant of Jacob's firstborn son was named Baal, 1 Chronicles 5:5. An uncle of King Saul, that is, a brother of Saul's father, Kish, was also named Baal, 1 Chronicles 9:35-39. One also finds Eshbaal, one of Saul's sons, Meribbaal, Saul's grandson, and Beliada, a son of David. Beliada. I don't know what that's got to do with it. 1 Chronicles 12:5 mentions the name of Belial, meaning either Baal, Yahweh, or Yahweh is Baal. So they tried to combine the two right there. They tried to combine Baal worship and Yahweh worship. After Gideon's death, according to Judges 8:33, the Israelites started worship a Baal Berith, Lord of the Covenant. And the citizens of Shechem supported Amalek's attempt to become king by giving him 70 shekels from the temple of Baal. Judges 9:4. The scene involving this Lord of the Covenant, eerily similar one described in Joshua 24:25 as involving a covenant with Yahweh. Judges 9:46 goes on to say, these supporters of Abimelech enter the house of El-Berith, apparently the same temple earlier referred to as belonging to Baal. Thus, all three names, Baal, El, and Yahweh, refer to a covenant deity at Shechem, and possibly to one deity referred to by three different names. The fact that altars devoted to Yahweh, even in the temple of Jerusalem itself, were characterized by horned altars could also indicate a carryover from more primitive days with El and Baal, both of whom were sometimes portrayed as bulls. See where they tried to combine it again. Were not worshipped on common hilltop altars with Yahweh. It is also possible that some hymns which originally described Baal may later have been ascribed to the worship of Yahweh. Psalms 29 is thought to be an adaptation of a Canaanite hymn originally devoted to Baal. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters. The voice of the Lord strikes with flashes of lightning. The voice of the Lord shakes the desert. The Lord shakes the desert of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord twists the oaks and strips the forest bare. And his temple all cry glory. Psalm 18 also describes the Hebrew God in the terms that could easily apply to storm god Baal, the rider of the clouds. The earth trembled and quaked, and the foundation of the mountains shook. They trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils. Consuming fire came from his mouth. Burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him, the dark rain clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of his presence, clouds advanced with hail, stones, and bolts of lightning. Yahweh thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. Thus it is quite plausible that in the minds of the Israelites, the Lord Baal and the Lord Yahweh were two names for the same deity. An awesome God who thundered from on high and yet lovingly blessed them with rain to bring fertility and prosperity. Now listen to this. It is difficult to know to what extent the false worship so strongly condemned by the prophets may be merely the wrongful worship of Yahweh, but characterized as worship of Baal. For example, Jeremiah persistently reminds his hearer that various evil practices are something that I never commanded, nor did it ever enter my mind. Jeremiah 7:31, 19:5, 22:35. The implication seems to be that Jeremiah's audiences believed these practices to be something which God wanted. In fact, the victorious judge, Jephthah, is recorded as offering his own daughter, as a burnt sacrifice, a practice later condemned by Jeremiah, not to a Canaanite deity, but to Yahweh himself. Judges 11. So you can see right there how the evil spirits got into their head and confused them that God wanted this. So they was thinking that Baal was God. Can you understand that? It is evil. It is an evil spirit. It is demons. They got into their heads. Regardless of how the people generally conceived of the relationship between Yahweh and Baal, the later biblical prophets clearly sought to draw the distinction as starkly as possible. The author of Kings dramatizes the distinction by reporting the words of Elijah to those assembled on Mount Carmel. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. 1 Kings 18:21. The story continues with prophets of Baal failing almost comically while Elijah's God sends fire from heaven and the people respond by killing the prophets of Baal. The lesson which the author intends for the reader could not be more clear. The prophet Hosea put the issue more subtle when he declared, I will allure her, Israel, and bring her into the wilderness, and I will speak tenderly and to her heart. And it shall be in the day, says the Lord, that you will call me Ishai, my husband, and you shall no more call me Baal, my Lord. Baal, for I will take away the names of Baal out of her mouth, and they shall no more be mentioned or seriously remembered by their name. Hosea 2:14 through 17. Now we're on to the demon Baal. Baal is sometimes seen as a demon in the Christian tradition. Early demonologists, unaware of Baal Hadad, or that Baal could refer to any number of local spirits, came to regard the term as referring to one supremely evil personage. Baal was ranked as the first and principal king in hell, ruling over the east. During the English Puritan period, Baal was either equated with Satan or considered his main lieutenant. While the Semitic high god Baal Hadad was depicted in various forms, a human, ram, or a bull, the demon Baal, also spelled Baal, was said to appear in the forms of a man, cat, toad, or combinations thereof. Another version of the demon Baal is Beelzebub, or more accurately, Baal-zebub, which is originally the name of the deity worshipped in the Philistine city of Ekron. 2 Kings 1:2. Baal-zebub might mean Lord of Zebub, referring to a now unknown place named Zebub. However, it is also a pun, Zebub, being a Hebrew noun meaning fly. Thus, Baal-zebub was the lord of flies. Scholars have also suggested that the term was originally Baal-zebul, which means Lord Prince. In this scenario, the name was deliberately changed by the worshippers of Yahweh to Baal-zebub, Lord of the Flies, in order to ridicule the worship of Baal-zebul. That's part one over with. So if you've got any questions, let me know.